right, I'm gonna call the meeting to order at 7:32. Pledge? And they're just all writing the time.
Okay.
Ready for the pledge?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you guys are all writing at the same time.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Does anyone have corrections or changes or suggestions to the agenda?
Nope.
All right.
I have a question. I honestly, I was a bit flip. I like Chris, but we haven't seen him for a while, and I'm just wondering if he's still willing to serve. Never mind. We can talk about that later. That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you for indulging me.
No problem. All right, I will adopt the agenda as is. Consent calendar. Any questions? Nope. I didn't either. Motion to approve.
No.
I need a second.
Sure, I'll second.
Okay. Can I second?
You can,
If I have
generally
to?
though, if you have to, if nobody else will and you would like to second a motion to carry it on to further discussion and a vote, then you certainly can, but typically you should allow other members to do both of those.
That's what I did. Okay, good.
Thank you for waking me up.
No problem. Someone's gotta be here. Public comment on consent calendar.
On consent calendar. I haven't looked at it, so I don't have a public comment, and I don't think that you guys might have looked at it either. There's never, ever any questions going on. It's all kind of show here. Sorry, I'm just gonna voice that opinion, but anyhow. I did not look at it, so I have no objections to it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Public comment.
Yes. First of all, thank you for indulging me
No problem.
for 3 minutes. And I'm going to give you my 3 minutes. 3 of 5 of my favorite CSD directors are here. I believe it or not, I like each one of you for individual reasons, and I know you're good people and you want to serve the community. What's serving the community? I think basically all that is done here is approving whatever staff requests have and keeping things, not keeping things the same, and that's, for whatever reason, that's your idea of a good job. I'm really kind of fed up with this. Once again, will ask for park benches. It's not a big expense. The fact that it hasn't been done, each one of you recognizes that we have people in our community that have difficulty walking and they want to sit down with their friends and chat, and there's a lack of spaces. This park is the jewel, the defining feature of our community, and basically, it's just, you're just kind of keeping it as is, unless, someone like Bill Hansel wants an extravagant project, you'll approve that for several $million bucks. But honestly, you guys have been selected, and it's kind of a joke to even call this democracy. You're not trying to overthrow democracy, but you really, if you have any conscience at all for the community, I think it's time to exercise that conscience in the form of your vision. I noticed this past month that there was a study for pickleball lines, and the request was made outside of the tennis courts, which of course the tennis players would say, no pickleball lines there. No outreach to the community, no outreach to the seniors. I'd be very surprised if you made any kind of outreach to the pickleball community, but it's huge, and it's another example where needs are being ignored. Have I said enough? Bill, can I go now?
Anytime you wish.
Okay. Well, so there's nothing new. Thank you for...
Can I respond for a second?
Yes, you can.
We did a lot of outreach on the pickleball survey. We had 175 different people complete the survey. In addition to all the signboards, the social media postings, letters were sent to 20 or so residents that live within 550 feet. I think to say that there was no outreach, and when we talked to the tennis community, just isn't an accurate statement.
Well, there you go. We had people in here 5 years ago requested, and we were slapped down. We were slapped down.
Hold on, can I also add something?
Okay.
This was also discussed at the PNR.
Yeah,
It's not
sure.
really, I'm just addressing it, it's not at our level, this was totally discussed
Okay.
at the PNR meeting. And actually, I wanna say kind of spearheaded by staff and the PNR, not this board.
It's probably about $50 worth of paint, so
Well,
whatever. I mean, you know,
Okay.
staff time, outreach, it really is not complicated.
The complete survey results are in the PNR Commission.
Oh, that's
their most recent
fine,
meeting.
Eric. I'm
I would-
sure it was worth your time. How much did, you know, you guys are highly paid to look after the community. The idea that it would be ignored for so long is just kind of outrageous. Or you want to do a study on park benches next? I don't know. We lack excellence here, and that's because people aren't reaching their vision. Anyhow, that's it for this month's.
thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Bye.
I do like you.
I
I'm
do like
sorry.
you too.
I'm sorry I have to kind of
It's
bring
okay.
the crap here, but if you don't hear it
Well,
from
that's
me,
what-
I don't think you're gonna hear
But
it from
that's,
anybody.
I understand that, that's what public comment's for, so thank you.
Thanks.
That's why I don't engage.
And that's why I don't date.
I don't date.
Go back.
Okay.
All right, moving on. So,
Okay. Direct. District matters, I almost said director matters. All you, Eric.
great. So, I'm sorry. What was that?
Budget's coming along.
The budget is coming along far. We were able to make a lot of progress on the budget. I think we're actually getting fairly close to what I am expecting to be I don't think the final budget will be far different than what you are looking at now. In my report, I kind of highlighted some of the changes that were made on the revenue and on the expenditure side. Also give you a list of kind of some of the bigger ticket items still outstanding. With final property tax adjustments coming too, so there'll be some level of adjustment there. The one thing I do want to point out, and I know that I put here potential workers' comp insurance adjustments, that's assuming we get additional information. I do not anticipate getting additional information on P&L insurance until after the approval process, but I have an update on that later in here. And then I also want to go through just looking at some of our kind of looming larger picture upcoming capital expenditure needs, and I tried to give you, yeah, Bill, that's a good response. Some things on that, just kind of going through a couple items of note here. Again, on the insurance, that kind of spreads across departments. They have told us to expect a 12 to 17% increase. I know it looks more in the budget when you compare year over year, but what I did was took the actual billing at the end of last year, and there was an adjustment mid-year by the adjusters that kind of reevaluated property and rebuild values. So we had a mid-year adjustment last year, and then I just tacked on the top amount and added times it by 1.17 to come up with estimates across the board. Hopefully they come in a little under. It doesn't account for any level of discounts we might get, so even if it hits at that number, there's still potentially applicable discounts that'll come our way. And then I also kind of highlighted all of the capital outlay that are planned at this point in time. I'm just waiting on feedback from one more shift at the fire department, but I don't expect much to come from that. But some of the ones that aren't carryover, and Luke can potentially speak more to this, but I think we have a need to, and I agree with Luke's and John Paul's assessment, that we need to upgrade the exterior lighting that is out at the pool complex. It's not installed very well. It's not really providing the light that they need, so we have a rough budget number in there for that, which would be kind of the only real new thing that's not either a recurring, pool heater replacement we've put in there. We did replace one not too long ago, but anticipating needs on the second one. And then these chlorine generator cells is kind of we have 3, they usually last somewhere around 3 to 4 years, so we're just gonna kind of keep including that in the budget, so that way we have, can replace the 3 as they go, and do that in a cyclical way as opposed to replace all 3 at once. On the fire department side, I have gone through increased vehicle maintenance. We actually account for this in 2 different areas. This 5210910 is primarily when we send vehicles out and we're not doing the maintenance in-house. Equipment maintenance or replacement is where we capture that, but we had a large hose outlay last fiscal year, or I should say this current fiscal year, that we're not anticipating nearly as much, so that kind of balanced each other out when I reduced the hose replacement budget and added in the added cost for maintaining the engines. And then, like I said, just still a carryover on fire from the bunk room project. Before I get into the next thing, any questions on where the current operating budget stands?
Just a really.
Yeah, please.
If we order a new engine, you said it takes 2 year, whatever lead time, right?
Right now.
Does the hoses and everything come with it, or do
No.
we take everything off of this engine
Yes.
and put it on that engine?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. None of the tools or equipment come with it. It's the engine and it's the pumps.
Oh, okay. Just
Like the water pump fuselage is in there.
Okay. I've never bought an engine.
Yeah.
Me either.
Wasn't sure.
So I guess kind of piggybacking on that, does staff have a recommendation as to when we?
Well, I was planning on getting into this. I'm wondering if just on the regular operating budget that we have right now, these are kind of large scale
Oh, that was your
capital,
next, sorry.
capital planning needs. I just wanted to, when you look at these things and the bullet points I put in before, I don't know if you have questions, thoughts, concerns, or anything as we go in. We should be able to finalize this up pretty soon. The April allocations for taxes haven't come in yet, things along those lines that I use, and I haven't, sewer water is kind of a complex thing to go through and look at, so we're breaking that down too.
Then now I don't have any questions on the
Okay.
general.
Okay. Bill, nothing? You've been through this enough.
It looks good.
Yeah.
I mean, we're putting money aside because capital projects coming up are
Right.
massive.
Right, which, kind of in response to one of the questions that Jeff Naylor had last month, looking at, do we really need to do this or do that? And I wanted to paint a picture of, we do have these large scale needs that are coming up. You've also got, kind of like your pensions or your health that keeps going up. In terms of these, as we go through,
Yeah,
if I'm prioritizing these in terms of need, I would look at probably that main pool replaster as needing to happen pretty soon, because once that really starts to go, you're gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, I just didn't realize even the new engine that we bought is almost 10 years.
10 years old, yeah. Yeah, it was bought right before I got here and delivered right after I got here, so. It'll be going into its 10th year this coming fiscal year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so
I'm going in.
just kind of going through this list, and again, I'll let Luke, as much as he wants to, kind of speak to the pool items. You know, one of the things that has been talked about is the permanent bathroom in the northern area of the park. Tennis courts 3 and 4 at some point are going to need a rebuild if we want to continue to keep those as playable courts. And when I say a rebuild, I mean a jackhammer, demolish.
3 and 4 are the ones near Miller Creek.
Yeah.
Those are the ones near Miller Creek. They're actually, and I put that note on here.
That's our pickleball court.
Right, and that property is actually owned by the school district. That is not Marinwood CSD property, so there's gonna need to be a little coordination with the school district in terms of getting that work done, not only as the property owners, but also as their proximity to it all. You know, that'd probably be like more of a summertime type of a project at some point. And then you have the fire engine replacement. Obviously, the type 1 is the regular standard fire engine that you're used to seeing. We bought ours, I wanna say it was about 600,000 10 years ago. Now they're anywhere from 1.3 to 1.8.
That's something else to be complained about by the community, I guess. How expensive.
Yeah, well, and unfortunately it's out of our hands, and they're still kind of dealing with some of the supply chain issues that they just haven't been able to catch up to orders that were placed. So hopefully that lead time can slowly start to come down. I do think you realistically easily have another 4 to 7 years, but I mean, 15 years on an engine. We dragged 20 out of the last one, and I would say those last 5 were pulling on that engine to say the least. So it's hard to expect that much, especially with how many moving parts engines have now, how expensive they get to repair. And that engine does get a lot of use. I mean, they go on a lot of calls, it's moving quite a bit. The Type 3 wildland fire engine is a completely different discussion. And I would actually look at and have a broader discussion, and it might be a good thing for the commission to kind of dive into, because I don't know that, and I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but I don't know if replacing it with a similar type engine is the best choice. There are smaller, you know, there's Type 4, Type 5, Type 6 that are more kind of truck chassis. They don't hold as much water. They're not quite as big and rugged, but for what we would need in our more local area, I think they could probably be sufficient. But again, I think that also deserves significantly more kind of research, bringing the pros and cons of everything to each. But at the end of the day, we just don't use the Type 3 all that often. Sending it out on wildland hasn't happened in several years where it was actually an engine in service. Because you have a lot of, you know, CAL FIRE engines out there now too, and those are the ones that they're calling first. You know, Santa Fe had a couple CAL FIRE engines at one point, which basically, we'll give you a Type 3, we'll keep it at your place, but when we call, you say yes, and you're bringing the Type 3. So CAL FIRE's made a lot of investment out doing that as well.
Along that line then, which was the one that came up here, 3 years ago?
The Lassen Fire?
Yeah.
The Type 3 did respond to that, but it actually responded to that at the point of ignition.
Okay.
They didn't, because they were first on the scene.
First on.
So they went immediately to where it was, right behind kind of juvenile hall and everything, right there. Several other engine companies, as well as you know, some pumpers and some other type of fire suppression vehicles, went out Queenstone and utilized that way. But we were on scene, and once you're on scene like that, you don't really get diverted.
What do we do with the old engine?
We sold the last one. There is a resale market, but it's nothing like what you would think. I think we sold the last one for about $25,000 to a volunteer department in Northern California.
Oh,
So we would, put it out through kind of, I don't want to say auction, but there's avenues by which to advertise it being available, and then a lot of times, involved departments or things like that will look to take it on, or more rural departments that just simply don't have the budget to buy a new engine, but have squeezed every ounce of life out of whatever they currently are driving. Their 25, 30-year-old engine that they can replace with a 15-year-old engine is a lot how that works. So, and in that one, I do recall we actually allowed them to make 2 separate payments.
Oh, nice.
So they paid at time of delivery and then paid the other half a year later, and all that was written up in the agreement. So, but I think if you're asking me to prioritize, fire engine aside because that's a necessity item, and Luke disagree with me. The rest of these are more kind of park and rec. I think that main pull blaster is probably going to be the one that's creeping up the fastest. We are working on trying to get a better sense of timing on how long we have there, but it's certainly starting to show its age. This is something we've been looking at 5 years ago. So
Yeah, that's, we've gotten a life and a half out of that pool shell, which I'm very proud of, just based on doing good maintenance on the pool shell. We were looking at replacing that, I think at least 5 years ago, and so, we're well past.
What's the lead time on this one?
As far as how long it takes to get it done?
Well, we shut the pool down in the beginning of October.
The replastering, the last couple times that I'm aware of that's been done, we've done it at least once since I've been here early on, but it can all be done during the off season.
They can do it during the winter then.
Yes, as far as booking that and all that, we're trying to just get some more information on the scheduling with the different replastering companies and get bids, but
It sounds like we can only get through maybe one more season.
It's hard to say. We had a lot of, so for the last few seasons, we've had someone come out and patch some of the cracks and some of the, I don't know what the right word is, I've called them divots, but we've lost like chunks out of the pool shell in certain areas, and we've been able to have some companies come out and go down and like cover those or patch some of that, and that's added years to the life of the shell. But the last couple times, it's like seems like it's accelerating, and it's going to be a point where it would be cost prohibitive to patch all of the and things are going to sort of snowball.
So what we're really saying is that maybe after this season ends, we should have it.
I think we're getting close. We would bring somebody out to give us that this is what they do, and really be able to, probably a couple of opinions on it to give us a full-on assessment. I'm always usually kind of the believer of squeeze every ounce of life out of it that you can on something like this, but I also don't want to get to that point where we try to squeeze that extra season and then that becomes problematic.
The main issue is if we start losing chunks out of the pool during the season that end up becoming a hazard, then we're doing like emergency repairs down there, which that is a bit costly. We're getting someone out, we're trying to maybe potentially close the pool until a rough, sharp edge is smoothed over or something.
Yeah.
So, but that's not obvious that we're going to be seeing that this season, or so we're going to do a little more research on that.
But as we know, and if this is something that came up for this off season, obviously it would come back to the board, it would be approved at that point in time. It doesn't fall, at these costs that we're anticipating, it doesn't fall under a sealed bid. And the number of companies that actually do this are fairly limited. General contractors don't come out and do this. This is kind of a specialty job, but still under the laws and these cost thresholds, we'd be allowed to put this out in a more informal way, and you don't have to worry about the sealed bidding process, so we could really kind of vet and work with vendors on it too. And you can make decisions based on timing, based on cost, based on a lot of factors. And then the other one is and I should add, you know, the cost of the work we're guesstimating right now at around 150 to 170. That doesn't count the 225,000 gallons worth of water you would need to put back into the pool.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a cost to that. So, it's not a cheap project. None of these on here are cheap. These are all, you
Can we
know,
do it little by little over the off-season months? Just kidding. I'm
just let the rain fill it.
Then filter it through?
The problem is, pool equipment doesn't like to be dry.
Can we just
Or
go
off.
to a fire hydrant? Not tell nobody? Just kidding.
Those days are gone.
I wouldn't mind if you guys actually, and I agree with Luke, like researching it more and even asking like how long they think we have,
Mhm.
and if it's potentially an end of the season.
That's our goal.
Project,
That's, that information is what we wanna ascertain. We just know that we're getting very close based on.
And then the top pool.
The top pool is an entirely different project.
Yeah.
And would literally need a complete rebuild, and once you get there, it's gonna need to be brought up to code. It's not, you couldn't build the top pool today the way that it is. In fact, Luke, you wanna talk more to this?
Yeah, I mean, the top pool is from the original, I think, pool construction, and the pipes are undersized for the current code, so we don't have the turnover rate in terms of like how long it takes for all the water to cycle through the filters. That's required now, but we're grandfathered in because we haven't done any like major modification since it was built. So if we were to upgrade it, then that would include changing out the plumbing and
But the plumbing goes
um,
underground,
All the way across.
Exactly.
all
Yeah.
the way across.
So that would be not just, you know, whatever we want to do. I mean, our current top pool is a circle of water about 1.5 feet deep. And those are, you don't really see those anymore. So I mean, like, we probably want to do something a little bit more modern and have some features that make us competitive with other top pools. But yeah, we'd have to dig up all the concrete and potentially grass, whatever where the plumbing goes back to the pump room, and replace I think we'd have to replace the pump and possibly the filter, and so there's a lot involved there.
I also.
Two pumps, one
What's
for the
that?
top pool and one for the big pool?
The top pool has its own isolated system. It's not at all attached to the main pool, except that its equipment lives in the same building. Yeah, so it would be isolated. We could do those completely isolated.
Do we need a top pool?
I would argue that the top pool, because our main pool does not have a very shallow end. It starts at 3.5 feet, which I don't think any.
Dump the babies in the big pool.
Yeah, dump them in.
It's pretty popular, the top pool.
Yeah,
It's
and-
hard.
It is really, yeah.
And with the number of smaller, younger kids in our camp program, it's a huge asset for programming as well as just the general public. I mean, anyone with kids under the age of 5, 6, that's kind of their main zone. So it's a huge asset for the pool.
And would we also look into possibly moving it a little, so it's,
Away from the creek?
I would look at a lot of that.
Yeah.
In fact, just
so it's
the
basically
whole ground kind of
redesign.
settlement and everything there, I think you're gonna need to bring in a geotech. You're gonna need to get some kind of more land stability issue, because you're gonna have to shore that foundation a little bit to kind of prevent it from doing, I mean, if you go out there, you can kind of see that one side of it is a little bit higher than the other side of it now, so
It's a
it.
deep end, what do you mean?
Yeah, it's
No,
a
no,
deep end.
no, I mean, that's deep end, yeah. Okay, took me a second.
Okay, thank you.
It's a long day.
Going right along.
We would, all of that,
Yeah,
all of that, and, you know, again, when I put this, I think that this, you know, kind of 225 to 250 is probably drastically understated when
This
you
is,
actually look at what you need to do. And Luke and I ballied around different ideas on what type of redesign. The thing, and this is why I put this in here, on a project like that, I would strongly recommend you bring in kind of a third-party consultant that does this type of work, that can also manage the project start to finish, from bidding to contractors to permitting to all of it.
you don't wanna manage it?
No. No, this is a large-scale project, yeah.
But yes, great experience on a large scale project.
This is different.
Hansel?
This is a very specialized kind of a thing. I would
No.
not
I
put
agree.
myself towards it. But
And
yeah, I do
you-
know an architect.
Do you, is your priority the top pool over the bathrooms?
Luke?
I think the reason that it potentially would be is because the bathroom is a luxury. I mean, I think it's something that would be a great benefit to have. I think we should definitely, it would definitely be a great thing to do. We should do it. In the absence of the bathroom, we're still completely functional in the park. If the top pool area became unstable because of erosion in the creek, or you know, that area needed to be, let's say that the shell needed to be replaced, and we start looking at what's the longevity
Or
of doing a
time.
resurfacing to the top pool. Without the top, you know, if that's not working, we don't have a functioning pool program. So I think it goes up the ladder of priority just because there isn't like there's not that much time we can hold off on that. Whereas the bathroom, like the current situation, while not maybe ideal, we could continue on with the same situation for a lot longer than I think we could with the pool situation.
I agree with everything Luke just said.
I do too.
It sounds.
Yeah, I mean,
Sounds
I think his term is.
Actually sounds
While we all
dire.
see value of putting extra bathrooms in, I think that looking at that as a want to have versus a need to have. And that's how I kind of am trying to look at this. I mean, obviously the main pool on this list here would be the biggest need to have. The fire engine also is a need to have, because without a functioning fire engine, you don't have a functioning fire department. In the same way, without a functioning pool, the big pool obviously gets a lot more use, and you can't go away from that. And then the tennis courts, at some point, you know, what we don't want to see happen is we just let those tennis courts go to dilapidated state, and then they're an eyesore. I mean, you've seen dilapidated tennis courts all over the place, and that's not
Might as
doing
well be
anybody
in the ghetto.
once. I think we could hopefully stretch that out for a little bit, but starting to look at it and see what kind of different funding opportunities may be there. I will say everything on this list above the fire engine is certainly eligible for Measure A funding. So, you know, and with that stream, you have anywhere from 100 to 110,000 that comes in every year that can only be spent in very restricted ways, and all of these items would go for that. And I think much in the same way that we designated the maintenance facility as the priority Measure A project and continue to bank that money and use as much as we could, I would recommend kind of taking that approach in order on some of these items too.
Yeah.
So have we considered just like putting together some sort of like a prioritization list, like which like priority
Well-
1, 2, 3, 4, and have we also thought about like a timeline as like, you know, I see that some of these say a year to 2 years, now, I think it would be helpful to kind of see like what the timeline would look like when these need to happen.
That's definitely something that I'm working on this year, is to try to get some more eyes on both the pool blaster situation as well as the top pool, to get just some different ballpark quotes and different opinions. It's you bring a salesman now, you're gonna get, you know,
We get sales.
a different, yeah. So there's a little more research to do on those in terms of finalizing or fine tuning the timeline and the need and the cost of that. But that's something that's like a high priority for us.
Just listening to you guys, I mean, it seems like we have already prioritized and in order and time. And it sounds like
They're
the
in the order that.
plastering is gonna have to be within a year.
Maybe
The top
two,
pool
but yeah.
within 1 to 2 years. And you go on from there. The bathrooms I don't really care about, but all this money, you realize you're gonna take away from park benches.
I do think at some point those tennis courts, hardcore tennis players or league play, they're not going to use those in the shape that they're in now, even though we just
Right.
dropped money. I mean, they're playable, but they're not. Let's just say they're not pro level playable.
Yeah, but
but they're
if-
still, you know,
If we come up with the idea that we may stripe them for pickleball, that's gonna get more use, and they're gonna
Right.
have to be redone.
you're exactly right.
So,
Then they wanna know what that, I mean.
so within 5 years, we're looking at almost everything on this list but the bathrooms, in my mind.
Yeah, I think the one thing that could potentially change, well, I mean, it would just kind of depend on if there ends up becoming a safety issue with the tennis courts, whether that can be done as a repair, you know, if there's like a trip hazard or something that forms from some of the cracks opening up, whether we could address that.
We could
as
sand
a-
them down like the sidewalks.
Well, right, no, I mean, actually, yeah, if there was a temporary solution to keep them open, keep them playable, or whether they get chained up until we have the funds to actually make them, you know, correct, so, I mean, that's yet to be seen at this point.
I think both are bad case scenarios. I think if the main pool's gotta get shut down versus shutting down tennis courts, you're gonna have a much larger amount of outrage over the pool, you know, in these in the scenario that Luke is describing. In these kind of an emergency, like, okay, right now, this is an absolute identified hazard, can't be used.
Oh, especially during the summer.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah, and don't let me cause harm, and Luke, if you feel otherwise, I mean, we've talked about this, I don't think we have this immediate sense need, like, God, I hope we can make it through this summer.
no,
With the
that's
pool.
not the feeling at
Right.
all, but it's.
Right.
No,
yeah.
I don't get that feeling,
Yeah.
I get that we're looking at numbers over the next
That
few
is,
years.
yeah,
This
but
is
also
one of
let
them.
them know that some of these are coming quicker than others.
Yeah, and I think there is, just to add to that, that the pool shell and my just experience, not direct experience, but just seeing other facilities, there can be a point you reach where, things start to go faster. It's not just like, oh, a crack opened up here, and then you have a thing here, and then it doesn't stay at the same rate. You might end up seeing, within a season, you see a massive deterioration if you reach that, the end of the lifespan for real. And that's something we've talked to a couple professionals that do the patching and replastering and say, you know, we're in good shape for this season, but that we could reach a point where we start seeing things just start to like deteriorate kind of universally in the pool. So we're not there at all, and I don't have any fears about you guys getting through this season, but I don't know that we're not gonna see that going into another year. So it's something we just wanna try to keep, you know, as a top priority.
And then I have, I'm just gonna say, so our pool gets used by a lot of people throughout the community, not just throughout Marin. So as much as it's covered by Measure A funding, is there a consideration for either pool increase, and this is on your guys' level, but for non-members of the community, so then it's not all Marinwood funding covering this expense that the other Marin County uses. Do you understand my question?
Looking at just
That's operating.
pricing, not.
I'm just asking,
operating,
I'm just
yeah.
Yeah, I guess, are you looking at one-time contributions, or are you saying, are we looking at increasing membership
planting the
rates,
seeds.
drop-in fees? so on
I'm
and
just
so forth?
planting the seed, so then when the number comes up, I know it comes out of one big budget,
Right.
but with Measure A, that's Marinwood money.
Mhm.
And with the pool, it's a big community pool that I know people from Terra Linda come and use, Sausalito come and use, Novato come and use,
Mhm.
and part of that is, you know, at a cost, and I know that they pay a membership, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, is there any way to like, planting the seed, I'm not saying it's our decision, I'm just,
I think levels
Planting the
of
seed
usage
with that.
fees on all rec programs probably need to get a little bit more closely looked at, scrutinized, raised a little bit, because I think that even though we do increase, we tend to try to keep prices low, recognizing in the nature of the business that we're in.
correct.
But also recognizing that especially these past couple of years, expenses and cost to run are going up faster than we are raising the cost, the revenue generators.
And we are in high demand, I mean, our can't sell out, our pool is always full.
It's always a tricky balance, but
So,
yes, to
yeah.
answer your question, yes, those are all
Okay.
things that we have certainly talked about. I mean,
Perfect, that's it.
you know, you put something like that into it too. And then, you know, the other thing I would say I mean, and we call it kind of a board designated reserve. When we first started it, kind of the primary purpose of it was looking at capital needs. The board does have, 600,000 right now in board designated reserves. And if you look at some of these, the fire engine, you're gonna purchase that on like a 10-year lease. So you're not cranking out the whole 1.3,
Correct.
the pool,
You're paying.
you're paying, and it's not even the same as, I know that we took out a loan for the facility. I don't really compare those two. I think,
True.
this is the one that you need to just, all four of these up here, most likely, you're coming up with the cash up front on hand. You're not going out and borrowing money to do this. However, also keeping in mind with things like Measure A, you can borrow Measure A futures, if that makes sense. We can designate a project, spend the money today and say, look, I know I'm spending 100,000 right now, and I know I'm only gonna get 50,000 this year, but I'm gonna apply my 50,000 I'm gonna get next year to the 100,000 I'm spending this year.
that a
And that's
certain rate?
totally allowable.
Is it at a certain rate?
No, because that's our money, it comes in every year. All I'm
Okay.
saying is we're gonna pre-designate what we're anticipating getting next year to something we're spending this year.
Okay.
So there's just a way to kind of replenish in such a way. So, and then, we were looking at some of the Measure A, and where that kind of stands, where those are coming in, what we spent this year, what we anticipate to actually wind up with this year, next year. So that pot is certainly building as well. And again, it's restricted funds, and these are the types of projects they love seeing the money get spent on.
Correct. And then my other request, which I guess I do it over time, once you have the numbers, will you, at least to me, well, you could present to everybody, but can we look at our savings and what has already been spent with that big project being out of our, as if, I wanna see it as if we're not getting reimbursed,
Sure.
so then I can see what's, we've spent and if we
Oh, yeah,
get
You
reimbursed.
basically wanna know what our balance sheet looks like.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, no, this would
I mean,
all,
that's when you
as we
finally-
start to shore this up, which
Correct. No, that's
wasn't
what
the
I'm saying.
point of what
Once-
we have today, but as we
Yes.
start to shore this up, this would get presented in a much more detailed way.
Correct, that's what I'm
You know,
saying.
these are what we've gone out, informal estimates, yet reliable estimates that we've gotten on these different types of things. This is cash on hand that the district
Perfect.
currently has, this is
Okay.
reserves, oh yeah, absolutely,
Because
100%.
in my mind, that you
Yep.
paid
No,
for
no,
that
no, yeah.
until we get the check.
Yeah, I don't
So-
disagree with a word you said.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I've been operating that project in that mindset the whole way. If we get reimbursed, great, but the work has to be done,
Correct,
so,
so,
yeah, of course. So again, I just wanted to paint that picture that we do have some things coming up. And there's gonna be some spendings and some capital level spendings that are gonna get needed. It doesn't mean things won't get added to this list or other things won't come up as well. But the other things that I have listed in the operating budget are things that get captured within the operating budget. I never budgeted the maintenance facility within our operating budget because
Sure.
that's an infrastructure investment. This whole project was it wasn't part of the actual operating budget. Those other things can fall into the operating budget and they're more operating needs,
okay,
as opposed to these very large projects.
perfect.
Yeah, if that makes sense. So anyway, that was my goal, our goal. And Luke and I certainly spent time kind of looking over, we have a capital needs and planning spreadsheet that we've been kind of building off of for several years now. And going through and just saying, hey, I think we're getting close to something, and then, just said, okay, let's just dedicate a section here to looking at what these large scale upcoming, meaning anywhere from the next 2 years to the next 7 years.
I think it's really helpful,
Good.
so thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad it is, I'm glad it helps, glad it informs, that's the goal.
Yeah. All right. Bylaws for potential amendments regarding board meeting start time and dates.
Motion to approve.
What do
Do we
you,
wanna just add?
Which
a
one?
little bit more color?
Yeah,
what is it?
They're changing the hours to
Two.
7.
And the date?
Same.
Okay, I'm just, there's a discussion, so that's what
okay.
I'm saying.
Can I
What's your
kick this
motion?
off?
Please.
So, A, it's just kind of a lot of context on where these things are placed within the board bylaws amendment, how you go about making amendments into the bylaws. It was actually staff that brought up the whole notion of moving these meetings to a slightly earlier time, which I've also provided, and if that time could go even earlier, but if I read the bylaws in their literal sense, it also seems like the full amendment should be placed in here, which is what we've done in this staff report, so it shows you exactly what the changed language would be by moving it until 7 p.m. It was also brought up by, the question was raised, I should say, by Director Ruggieri of, is there an ability to change the date? And the answer is yes, there is an ability to change the date. It's written within the board bylaws. It would be a same type of a process. I think that is a larger conversation, and I don't think that's a motion that you are prepared to make tonight because we don't have a consensus on the date. You don't have language written in here in the same way I have language written there, but it doesn't mean it can't be placed. If that is, kind of board consensus, yes, let's certainly look at this, then the conversation, which can happen tonight, is what would be alternative dates that, a day of, that would work, and then that would need to go into here and come back for an actual action, if that makes sense. I would also suggest on that, it's fine having this conversation, but I wouldn't necessarily bring that back. It seems to me that that is a better conversation for all 5 acting board members to be present for. I would
The date
assume,
or
but
the
I'm
motion?
also of the opinion that decisions are made by the people who show up, and I don't mean that in a wrong way, I just mean
Correct.
that's the tenet of government, that's why you have quorums and action and operations happen when you have a quorum of the board. The decisions are made by the people at the table. So, that said, how you guys wanna move forward with this, right now, in my opinion, your actions are, that you could do is potentially approve the amendment as presented that would change the board meeting start time from 7:30 to 7. Should you desire a different start time, we can bring that back to the table next month per se, like if you'd rather see 6 o'clock than 7 o'clock. Just as an example, I would even recommend, for the sake of reading this, how the bylaws are written, I'll bring that back next month for further discussion, approval, action. And then if you wanted to look at potentially different dates, and that's what I think I put in here, board's desire, such an amendment will be drafted and presented at a future board meeting for potential formal approval. And then I also just, to put in there, fire commission meets on the first Tuesday of every even numbered month, park and rec commission meets on the fourth Tuesday of each odd numbered month. So making sure that you understand potential conflicted dates in there as well. Question, thoughts, discussion?
So, okay, so we don't, so tonight, our action, we can vote on the change of time, yes?
Yes.
And then have a discussion around potential other dates in the month,
Mm-hmm.
yes?
Days.
Dates. So, on the days in the month, I would be supportive of any other day in the month that is not the second Tuesday of each month. I can share the reason for my position on this if it's helpful.
It's up to you.
So my spouse is also on a board that has the meeting the second Tuesday of each month. And we've got 2 young kids, and it would be helpful for my family to have the meeting on any other day to prevent that conflict. That said, if the general consensus is that we need to keep it the way it is, we've been doing it for over a year at this point, so we can keep it.
And what is your desired time?
Oh, I 7 is fine, earlier is fine, I'm not particular. I'm happy to go with the consensus on that.
Okay.
You already know my opinion.
You want benches in the bar? Sorry. 7 o'clock? 7:30?
7 o'clock's fine, I don't care about the time. The first, second Tuesday of the month has been ongoing for, I don't know how many years. I don't see
It's not
any
a change.
change. I'm used to it.
Okay. I prefer the Tuesdays, only just because it's in rhythm of what's already happening. I also would be okay with 7 o'clock, I don't think I can do earlier than 7. But again, so I think we would need, so today we're only doing the time, correct, Eric?
And discussion about the
And
potential.
then the next agenda item.
Your action item tonight would be the time.
Correct, and then later on, the request to put it back on the agenda to potentially change the day would be the request, correct?
Yeah, and if there's any level of consensus amongst the three of you as to what another date would be, to Kathleen's point, you know, if you wanted to look at the third Tuesday of the month as opposed to the second Tuesday of the month, I don't, I mean, you can't really do the first and fourth because you're gonna start running into conflicts with P&R and fire commissions, unless of course you wanna do away with those commissions,
And that's a whole nother conversation.
much larger. But then if you, I guess my point though, you do that, now you gotta look for different dates for those commissions, which means you gotta go to the, you know, these have, to Bill's point, these dates have been set for as far back as I could possibly find, in terms of the first, second, and fourth Tuesdays of the month.
Yeah, those were the dates when I moved into the neighborhood, those were the dates of the meetings.
A long time ago.
Yeah, I just even was trying to research very old minutes or whatever it was, and it goes a long time back.
But, I mean, the reason for keeping something the way it is shouldn't be.
I don't disagree
We've
with you.
always done it that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if there's another reason besides that, that's compelling for us to keep it on that second Tuesday, then, you know, like I said,
I don't disagree with you with that's how we've always done it. I don't like that line. What I like is that I know that something for me falls on a Tuesday. So in my mind, whether it's the second Tuesday or potentially the third Tuesday, I potentially might be open to change it to the third. Because I do agree that just because we do it this way doesn't mean that it's not open for discussion and it can't be swayed one way or another. But I would prefer to keep it on a Tuesday so then everything stays in rhythm and doesn't get confusing. Does staff have, I know you guys said 7 o'clock, do you guys have a feeling for earlier or just?
Oh, I'll have it at 10 a.m. That's just me, I'm here all day anyway, I recognize why that's not.
That
Good.
would take you away from the heavy
I
load. that-
Or I will say, moving the meetings earlier definitely lessens a burden for staff who are kind of here all day, you get home late.
Yeah.
We have multiple of these meetings, not just one a month, but
And there's-
up to 3 a month, you
yeah, and
know,
there's
so.
commuting times and all of that, so, I mean, I
All of it,
recognize
the
that,
earlier
so-
the better, it certainly helps. Again, I kind of noted in my thing last month that a lot of agencies seem to have moved their meetings up a bit. You know, Santa Fe even went from like 6:30 to 6, I think, or maybe even 5. I couldn't find a lot that meet as late as we do.
Well,
Um,
the MWPA meets at 3.
Right. Right.
I don't know on that board. So, I mean, yeah, from timing, like, I think I'm fairly flexible.
I would, just from my own personal perspective, I would be happy with an earlier meeting time. The Tuesdays, I've oriented my life around Tuesdays, so I would be appreciative if that stayed at Tuesdays, because that would be a lot to adjust to if the day of the week were to change. But as far as the time, yeah, that really would be definitely beneficial to my family life and everything. But
Would a second Tuesday versus a third Tuesday be a hardship?
no, that wouldn't be a hardship.
I haven't had this conversation. I'm in the same boat. I mean, we have certainly built accommodations around my life outside of this job around Tuesday nights. So to move it off of a Tuesday night would very much complicate things, in the domino effect world, that I would have to figure out, one way or the other. And I'm sure Luke the same, Tiffany the same for these second versus third Tuesday, I don't know. The fifth every month there's a fifth Tuesday, we'll meet that month. It's usually 2 or 3 a year. She might be onto something. So yeah, yes, I mean, again, I would take this home a little bit and kind of look at things. In some ways, a third Tuesday might actually tend to help my own personal situation out, but personal situations also change.
Right.
You know, just because right now, every now and then I have a second Tuesday conflict doesn't mean that I'm gonna have a second Tuesday conflict 6 months from now that you know, that could go away. And so it's hard to kind of look at it that way. I do think there is something to be said for consistency, not that you get a lot of people here, but it has been known that these are the dates of those, this is when those groups meet. I do think, if anything, moving the time earlier might help increase our overwhelming public attendance. I think 7:30 is late, so I would move it to at least 7 o'clock and would be wide open to considering an even earlier time.
Yeah.
But that's just me. I also recognize that the people who sit on this board are career board people. This isn't your job. People also have lives, and sometimes it's easier for them later in the evening because they are coming straight from work or whatever the case may be. So it could get challenging.
I was just so the camera sees, I was looking at what the third Tuesday would be in October, and October has 5 because the first is a Tuesday. And so the third Tuesday would be the 15th, which means I wouldn't be here. So that's why I was looking at it.
But I would, because screw my clients.
That's why you're my accountant.
Exactly. Hopefully you're filed. Just kidding.
So yeah, I mean,
So
and
things
again,
like that.
I would just out of respect to the other two who aren't here today, I think it would be fine to put something together and put something that can be actionable at the next board meeting, and still give them a chance to know about it, come in, discuss it, talk about it, whatever the case may be.
Well, I think that's fair too, because then you can also look at the calendar, like I just did, and be able to be like, okay, yes, this would work, or no, it wouldn't, or yes, I can change it, or, because again, we've been, our whole, at least for me for the last 3 years, have been Tuesdays. I really don't book anything on a Tuesday, because I can never know whether I'm here, fire, or whatever, and I never quite remember
Well, and I'll tell you, I
what
mean,
day it falls on, but I know it's Tuesday.
and again, it's hard to say, okay, well, here's my, there's no guarantee I'm gonna be here forever. In fact, it's a guarantee I won't be, but we've built our life around that third week of the month is the month that we get to look and plan vacations or whatever they, I mean, because first Tuesday, fourth Tuesday, second Tuesday, I try to be at every meeting. I've missed one board meeting in 9+ years, and that's because I turned 50 and I just said, I'm going away. But so it gets a little, Luke brings a good point. I mean, as staff, we have built accommodations around what our current schedules are. And it doesn't just impact us, it impacts our families at home and everything else too. So those are all things to think about, but it's our jobs and kind of figure it out. And I would also say this, and this isn't certainly, I understand the predicament that Elisa is in, but I would also ask that you kind of look and say, what's the kind of long-term plan? Am I going to want to throw my name in the hat for another round? Am I, for another term, or look at that? Because to make a change to accommodate something for 6 months, if there's no plan for that to carry on to another 4 years, it might be something worth thinking about as well. So if Lisa says she's going to run again, then I say, third Tuesday sounds great. All right. If she says she's not, then I'm going to say, I don't care about your problems, we're sticking with second Tuesday.
Oh, you just,
Plus it gets rid of an excuse for me for not being on another board.
I will say that I really appreciate that you brought up the time, but you're bringing up and presented your conflict and was comfortable enough and open to share with us, because sometimes that's hard. So, because we have an action item to either approve or not approve, I need, well, you second, you first.
I approved for the time.
You made a motion, you made
Motion to approve.
at 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
I'm just making sure.
So Kathleen, you can't do any earlier than 7?
I think it's hard for me to do any, well, so the action would be 7, and either then you decline this first, and we don't have a second, then we vote and we say no, and then there's no approval on this action.
Well, if you don't have a second, you don't vote.
But I can still second it.
Right.
So my question is that if we don't approve this though, then it stays at 7:30, and then we
Correct.
add it back to the agenda, because the action items just change it at 7.
So we can't change it to earlier than 7 at this meeting?
I wouldn't recommend it. I think if you're just reading this word for word where it says, policies and procedures cannot be amended, altered, or modified in any way by oral statements. Adoption of new policy such as bylaws or amendment of an existing policy shall be accompanied at a regular meeting of the board of directors and shall require a 2/3 affirmative vote. But there was somewhere here, the proposed adoption or amendment is initiated by submitting a written draft of the proposed adoption or amendment. And then it says it cannot be modified in any way by oral statements. That's why I'm sticking to this. So, but here's another different option. You could still approve 7, bring it back again next month and say 6:30
Correct.
or 6.
But we
That
can't
part
change this,
doesn't
we
Yeah,
can't change this
got it,
action.
Right.
Got it.
Right, but it doesn't mean it can't come back again.
Okay.
Correct.
But right now, I think if I'm reading this in a very literal sense, you have a written out amendment on the thing here that moves it to 7. If you wanted to go even earlier, you have the option of just say, great, let's just start with 7 next month and bring it back to the table and say, does 6 or 6:30 work? And I can put both amendments on it.
Correct. And then you can make the motion for either or the date, or whatever, and all that other stuff.
Well, and just so I am kind of clear, I mean, how do you want to move forward looking at this date?
Well, hold on, we're not to the date yet, can we do the time first? Can we do the motions, because I have a motion for
You
the
can.
action as it is.
You have a motion, do you have a second?
Second.
Okay. Now, before you do a vote, because usually once you vote, you're closing off this topic and you're moving on.
Correct.
Which is why I'm looking at, how do you want me to move forward in bringing back a potential date change?
I think we do it as,
Request for future agenda items.
no,
I mean,
how the wording is. I think you do 3, so the consensus that I hear, correct me if I'm wrong, is that, yes, I know you want the second Tuesday, but that the third Tuesday is potentially available.
Mhm.
So I think that one of the addendums, I'm gonna say, the articles of adjustment or whatever, would be for the third Tuesday at 7 o'clock. And then I would do one for the second Tuesday at 6:30, and the third Tuesday at 6:30. So you have 3 potential amendments for us to choose from.
Yeah, I love that, that's great.
We just have to keep track, and I'm just throwing this out there so it doesn't stay in my brain, of the motions and how they are presented, not make a motion to approve, we need the, which ones?
And there'll be option A, option 1, option 2, option 3.
Perfect, I'm just, yeah.
So that'll be very clear. So right now, Bill has a motion, seconded by Lisa on the table, to adopt the amendment, changing the time of the regular board meeting, start time to 7 PM.
Correct. Okay.
Okay, and then we'll come back next month, 6:30, that's as early as, you wanna look at for the time being?
I mean, I say yes, but. Do you want it earlier? I'm not
Hell
asking
no.
you. Oh,
The simple no would have been fine.
okay, yes, that's it, so.
Alright,
I'm
Um,
doing with you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
okay. I know it's complex, and we've gone through a lot, I
I get it.
don't make the rules, I'm just telling you how I read them on here, and how I read them says, this is what you're limited to at this point in time, and we can bring it back with a few options on the next time. And I do appreciate you all kind of looking and listening to staff concerns on it, because we have certainly kind of facilitated our lives outside of work around these Tuesday nights, so.
Well, and I appreciate you guys also speaking up and giving your honest opinion as well, and feeling comfortable to speak up, so. District manager report.
Yeah, so I don't have a written report for you guys this time. I mean, the majority of what I've been doing since the last time we met is working on budget items. I can give you a couple quick updates. One that, as far as FEMA goes, once again, now we have a new contact in FEMA. The contracted person we've been working with has been reassigned, which is a shame because I really, really liked him. He was probably the most helpful FEMA person I've ever dealt with out of the few times we've had to deal with FEMA. I actually had a phone conversation, I've been trading emails for a while, but had a phone check-in with the new person today. He seems like he actually might also be very helpful, which is good. Just an update on a couple things. We have two different categories of funding that we're looking at. One is called Category B, which is emergency protective measures. This was the work that we had to do in the immediate aftermath of the event. That was a little over $4,000. That has actually been approved and obligated now, so they're just going through the steps to process that actual payment. But FEMA has said, this is all approved, we've got
So we
everything.
get $4,000.
Like $4,800. The exact amount we spent on those emergency measures. And then he confirmed that right now for what's known as our Category E work, which is all of that. I gave him an update on where we are, said, basically that project, literally as of yesterday, I believe has been completed, done. It's been completed for a while, but we had a couple punch list items that they came out yesterday and fixed up, and very minor. This was, they needed to add some, basically some deer fencing around all the plantings that they put on top, so the deer didn't come in and eat them all. They did that. And I think actually it's gonna serve a dual purpose for us, because it actually prevents another layer of defense from people. I'm not worried about children as much as I am people coming from the other direction up in there. So they did that, they kind of shortened down a pipe, and they had to run a little bit more drip line irrigation to some other plants in the creek bank area to make sure that those all take and establish themselves. Yes?
Drip line,
Mm-hmm.
that means we're gonna maintain all that?
No, it's actually on the contractor to make sure that these plants are established, and they have a 3-year obligation to that.
Okay.
But the drip line is to help them get established, and then once they're established, there'll no longer be the need for a drip line, and
Alright.
it'll be very easily removed. But new plantings need more irrigation, although there is a lot of ground soil saturation still in that area too. So feel good about that. He took a look, thought everything looked very good, asked me to send invoices that haven't been provided yet. But he also said that yes, looks like it is still in what's known as environment and historical preservation. In their review, that's been known to take a very long time. He said, but I'm looking at all of this and seeing that we had basically approval from every regulatory agency imaginable. He can't see how it would possibly be kicked back by any concerns that they could have, so he was going to check in with them and try to get in touch with somebody on the EHP side this week. Otherwise, it's gone through a lot of the checks and balances that it's already needed. So, and he's also going to circle back because he too thought that it was odd that they didn't approve what's known as the hazard mitigation, which was the waterproofing work. So he's gonna circle back and see if he can't make a little headway in that too. He said, you know, I've had some instances where it has not been initially approved or even the appeal hasn't really been considered, but we've been able to kind of approach it from a different way, and the fact that that whole project's also cost you $20,000 less than what you submitted as the bid cost on it helps. So he's not giving up hope on that part either, and that's, you know, $26,000 extra there, so that'd be nice.
Yeah.
Or 93.75% of $26,000. And then from the project itself, now that that other work is done, Matt Smelter, who's the principal owner of Geomorph, who has really helped us with all the other stuff. He's currently out of town until the week after next, but I will work with him on closing out with all of the environmental reg agencies, as well as the actual permit that we have, the construction permit with the county. But otherwise, I shot him all the pictures. He said, yeah, it looks like they did everything we requested of them from a punch list, kind of what's left. So I will probably send a letter to the people, letting them know that they can bill us for their final retention that we hold, because every time they bill, they hold 5%. So right now we have 5% of their total contract that has not been paid out yet, and that's specifically for these purposes that go through closeout. But closing out permit can take a long time, so within this letter, I'll also put a clause that just says if permitting comes back with any additional needs, you are obligated to come perform these as long as they were within the original scope of plans, and somehow we missed it. And they've been incredible to work with still, so they're not gonna have any issue with that. They've
They
been great.
resurface pools.
I wish they did. They might, you never know. So that's where we're at on those. And then the other thing I wanted to kind of bring to you, and this is a good time, and I didn't really necessarily want to put anything in writing on this. It has nothing directly to do with our agency, but there are some rumors of potential development at Marinwood Plaza. Yep, you are, I can't remember the name of the agency, but what they are looking is at actual, potentially up to 125 units, all affordable, on that site, potential 3-story apartments, and also exploring kind of a retail, like a small cafe or something in that area as well. Nothing has fully been submitted, but they've definitely been out there. They've had the surveyors out there. They've been doing a lot of prep work on it. So again, and I was very clear when I spoke to him that, you know, as an agency, the only comments that we could potentially have on anything is potential impacts to the 4 services that we provide, which would be park, rec, fire, street lights. Whether you agree or disagree with the housing is not a formal statement that comes from the district unless you identify that. I did tell them at 3 stories, there might be some level of impact with fire because I don't have a ladder truck.
Do we have a giant thing that they can jump into?
Yeah, and the little cartoon characters run out and the clowns and they honk the horn and then they spray the water, the fizzy water on you. Yeah. So I talked to him, he's a local person who's kind of looking at this and spearheading it at this site.
Who is this?
It was a group called Tableau Development, so it's kind of a development group, but they would be partnering with probably a nonprofit housing as
They're
well.
gonna go directly to Marin County Housing Authority too,
Well, I don't
probably.
know.
Working with them, and they just had it. The supervisors are doing thinking about a special tax for low-income housing.
Regional. Yeah, I saw that. That's a regional tax. But anyway, and that's just more of a FYI on that. So again, nothing's been submitted and nothing's anything until it's submitted. But they've definitely put some movement into it, and have started laying all the
125
groundwork.
is more than the 110 that they wanted to put in.
I don't remember what the previous number was, but that's what he's looking at right now. Doesn't mean it'll stay at that. He was actually at the meeting with Susan Adams, the infamous Susan Adams meeting back in whatever it was, 2013, I think. That ultimately, at the end of the day, a lot of people feel cost Susan her position on the board of supervisors. So, but he was there. He knows. He understands what challenges. This is what he does. He's built other developments like this at other places. I want to say in the county and definitely in the city and some other spots. So around the bay. Anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Otherwise, like I said, it's been a lot about budget and trying to get as much of that possible to bring it as close to home as we could before the next meeting.
Glad we got H and I voted in years ago.
Any questions?
No.
Any questions? None from my either. Fire. Wanna take it? 'Cause
Yeah, I mean, the minutes are there if you'd want to look at the minutes. The one thing I do want to point out is at a point before the last fire commission meeting, Tom Ellsbury came in my office and he has formally resigned from the commission due to personal reasons. Which I'm not gonna, he shared them with me, but I don't know that it's entirely my place to share it, but I certainly thanked him. I mean, he's been on that commission for probably almost as long as Rollins served on, in different ways, but he was on, easily 25 years, I want to say, was on that commission. And I certainly brought up the notion of doing something. He seemed very disinterested in that, but it doesn't mean we can't do a little something, and don't necessarily need to make it a public meeting thing. And I know Tom, and I'm sure will stop by and check in from time to time too. So that's the one item I definitely want to bring up. Otherwise, you can kind of see the notes on the minutes, and if anybody has any questions, Kathleen was at the meeting as well. Happy to speak to those.
I'm just curious about the Queenstone Fire Road. They said before the fiscal year end.
Well, if we're ready to move on to the chief report, I can talk to you about that as well too. Let me get, in fact, give me 2 seconds here. I printed something, I want to bring it.
Still under 6 minutes?
Yes, we discussed that too. He doesn't understand how exciting it is. Like every time. It's impressive, oh my God, it is.
Chief Roman did send me a little bit of updated information on, for his report, just on the wildfire mitigation updates. If you're ready to move on, Kathleen, it's up.
I am ready to, I mean, do you have any questions, Lisa? Okay, yeah.
Okay, I guess before I get into this, is there any, outside of the wildfire mitigation updates, which I can cover a little bit more in depth, because I'm a little bit more closely entwined with those, any other questions on any of the stuff in the chief's report here?
No. So, no.
Is Chief Roman gonna be joining any of our meetings?
I don't know. I think as he can. He has been at and was at the fire commission meeting last week. So he has been active for those, which has been great.
Has he been appointed chief? Or just
No,
still active?
he is interim.
Still after.
I don't know what their long-term plan is yet. I don't even know if he does. He very well might. He hasn't said anything to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel Chief Roman is finding himself pulled in a lot of directions that he wasn't pulled in when Chief White was there.
Yeah.
Especially just kind of knowing how the city operates, so.
He's fastly learning.
But I will let him know that the board would love to see you at a meeting or two, even if there's nothing of real significance to update them on.
I will, can I just add that he is, this, I don't know what you guys finally called it, not a sub-meeting, you're working,
Oh, with the fire commission, yeah, we established an ad hoc working group that is going to meet outside of the commission meeting. It consists of Commissioner Greg Stilson and Commissioner John Surratt as the two members of it, and then support that they may need from staff, be that myself, Chief Roman, and or the firefighters next door. They want to look at potential more strategic initiatives that the commission as a whole could work on. So they are going to work on identifying what some of those are, or could be bring that back to the commission to kind of refine what some of those are and kind of look at some, for lack of a better term, kind of projects that the commission can be focusing in on. We haven't really had any of those meetings yet, and the commission has really just kind of been going through the motions, I would say, for the last few years. So I think this would be good to get feedback from the chief, from myself, from the firefighters, as well as feedback that they may have themselves, bring this back into a public meeting setting and try to give the commission something that they can work on that would provide value and benefit to the department, to the district, to the community as a whole.
so my point of not only informational was that he also, we're adding another meeting
Yeah,
potentially to his plate
right.
Yeah.
that involves us.
And to his defense, I mean, he certainly volunteered
That's my point,
himself.
Yes, he did, and he's
that-
really interested in it,
Uh-huh.
so that's,
Mhm.
for me, for my 2 cents is I'd rather have him meet there and with the commission than even just
Right.
present a report here,
Mhm.
so.
Yeah, and if, I think also, if there are things within the report that definitely need more attention than kind of updates.
Yes,
he would-
exactly.
He would be here.
That would, yeah.
He would
That'd be the
here.
only time I would
Right.
expect him.
Yeah, he would be here.
So.
Kind of getting into the wildfire mitigation. Bill, I'm curious, you said something about Queenstone. Has this come up at NWPA board meetings?
Not yet.
Okay, because you said something about the end of the year.
It says it
It
in,
says it
Oh.
in the
Fiscal year.
report.
Oh, county crews, but, oh, yeah. Yeah, so that actually work is happening, has been happening. And in fact, he sent me some more detail because he received some more detail. Had fuel reduction work completed in March to reduce invasive and overgrown fuels along the roadway, mostly French broom. Helped to create fuel reduction buffer on each side of the road, eliminated ladder fuels along the roadway, was completed by a contracted crew using core level Measure C funds, which aren't our local funds, but, or Santa Fe's local funds, but funds that are designated to what is called the Santa Fe region, which basically consists of us and them and some portions of the county, and that's it. We are still looking into, and there has been a little bit of movement on this, Queenstone Fire Road, the road condition itself needs work, and these are things that we have talked about. One thing that actually, one of their wildfire mitigation specialists, a woman named Kate Anderson, who I think incredibly high up, she's very smart, very dedicated, is working on pitching not only for core but for countywide funding, an actual assessment, inventory, and assessment of all the major fire roads in the county. And this is going to be coming to there, because I had basically stated that I really want this. There has been some levels of pushback, is my understanding, on people wanting to spend Measure A on fixing or repairing fire roads, because Measure A or Measure C money is meant to supplement, not to supplant. And so for a lot of these things, they already had budget, they were already doing this type of work. We haven't done this type of work since 2017 when we filed a FEMA claim for it because of the 2017 storm, so I'm not worried about that. But what we are looking at, and talking with Kate right now, and she is working with the county, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because we don't have anything in place, but based on conversations we've had at the county has equipment and operators to do that kind of work. We have a plan from 2017, a grading plan for that road that shows kind of where swales go in to help direct sheet flow off of the road instead of smack down the middle of it. The county has tentatively offered up their equipment and their operators to come perform, and the only cost would be for some level of, infill that might be needed on some of these ruts material, or any level of specialized equipment has to get rented, which I don't think it will, and I think that's a very low expense. This is that's not a long-term fix, that's more of the Band-Aid fix, but that road definitely needs some Band-Aids on it at this point. After this last winter, some of the ruts and grooves are getting pretty good. So the county is willing to put forth their equipment and their operators at no cost to the district. But material and infill that might be needed would be a cost to the district. This is pretty minor cost, things that we can definitely absorb. So she's trying to get some final numbers on that. And we probably get the county out pretty quick. That will certainly get us through and allow Kate and team at MWA to perform this much larger study and looking at county-wide funding from MWPA to put towards rehabilitating a lot of these roads, not kind of the local regionalized funding as a county-wide project, because a lot of fire roads need this. So that's where that stands. And then the other project which you mentioned in there, the Blackstone Open Space, Luke and I recently met with a couple other of the veg management and mitigation specialists. They are looking at estimates for this project. What we want to do on Blackstone is basically from where the work that we had done kind of stopped at the end of Peachstone Terrace, continuing that type of work all the way around down Las Colinas, up to Blackstone Drive, all the way out to where the Horn Trail is, and working on, I don't want to call it a shaded fuel break because it's mostly shaded over there anyway, but there's a lot of debris, a lot of trees that could probably be limbed up a little bit. It's a little bit tricky because it's incredibly steep terrain. The hillside that comes down to there is really steep. It would be a slightly different type of a treatment, but these guys have gone out, they've taken a look, now they're talking to contractors. Once they are able to get some initial estimates, they'll bring it back for my review, but that's what we're looking at our local spending for this go around for MWPA. I think it's the last area that we haven't really touched yet, with the only other one remaining being along the southern edge of Elvia Court, where all of the new construction is. That was actually one we were going to do a few years ago, and then all of a sudden they decided to start moving on that thing and block our access point to it. But once that is done, there will actually be access into there, and we'll revisit that at that point in time. And we're also finalizing some CEQA compliance. When we did our CEQA studies initially, we didn't have that area specifically mapped and included. But it should be just an amendment to an already existing notice of exemption that being filed and all the documentation that goes with it. So once that's all finalized, we'll be submitting that as our local project for the 24-25 fiscal year. So that'll really kind of create a break that will now essentially wrap around all of Marinwood proper.
Okay.
Up to, through Lucas Valley. We did a lot of work in Lucas Valley Estates, and the large swaths of open space to the north of Lucas and south of Lucas Valley Estates is actually owned by the county. That's not our property.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Yep. And that's what I got.
Alright, any other questions? Perfect. So I have wonderful notes from Chris about the PNR. And they're all about pickleball, so I'm not gonna read them. Sorry, Chris. And I'm gonna let Luke present his report. Well, do you have any questions about
No.
the PNR minutes that addressed the pickleball conversation?
I don't see anything
No,
pickleball
thank
here.
you.
Staff updates regarding potential pickleball trial period.
Oh yeah, that they were on the
Sure.
surveys and stuff.
Yeah, number 5 on the list was where we talked
Oh, I see.
about,
Yeah.
it was definitely the conversation of the meeting. I will certainly kind of turn it over to Luke, but again, and I know I responded, which clearly didn't get actually listened to in any way, shape, or form, but we did a ton of outreach on this to all sorts of parties. I contacted the school directly. I have a relationship with the principal at the middle school. I emailed her directly. She passed it on to their parties. We did have a couple of people who work at the school come by and talk to us. We reached out to the neighbors. We had 175 people complete this survey. So to say that there was no level of outreach, it's just not an accurate statement.
But you didn't do it 5 years ago. We didn't do it 5 years ago.
Yeah, so, I don't know, Luke, if you want to add your 2 cents into how you feel that conversation kind of left off with the PNR Commission.
Yeah, that was a great conversation. I appreciated that everybody involved seemed to be considering all the different factors, and no one seemed to be pushing for, anything except trying to figure out what's the best course of action and how to move forward in a manner that's appropriate to the community and kind of serves the most interests. So I don't know if we had any real hard conclusion, except that most people involved seem to favor some sort of trial period that we didn't really clearly define, but that would be the best next course of action is to see. I think the way I read that was a trial period with temporary lines and setting up what we would think would be the best way to establish a pickleball court on the existing tennis courts closest to Miller Creek and see how that goes and any unforeseen consequences of that, other questions that are raised, other considerations that didn't arise in the discussion that would maybe allow us to have more information to move forward with. So I don't think we've established exactly how and when we're going to do that, but that's something we've been discussing. So.
Can I add one more thing really quick before we get into your report on the minutes? John is asking for potential about the bathrooms.
Yeah, it came up in a different context, to be honest with you, because we were.
Can I just add? Can you kind of add what we discussed from the budget and our potentials tonight, that it's not one of our critical
Yeah, I'll bring that
things
back.
to adjust?
That's actually the context in which it came up.
Okay.
Because it was actually, if I'm recalling properly, a lot of the comment around pickleball kind of veered towards the overall condition of the courts themselves, which then got into the larger conversation of capital needs, at which point I was talking about, we have a lot of kind of upcoming capital projects, so that was, it's not nearly in the level of detail that it was presented and or discussed tonight, but the bathroom was brought up as an example, it's just kind of some other items, and when you're looking at that, that's adding to a larger capital list of replacements, so we also have other needs that are gonna need to be looked at and prioritized. So that is where the bathroom, that's what spurred
Perfect, okay.
the question about the bathroom. So yes, when we come back, we will certainly look at it and share with them at their next meeting, kind of like, these are some looming ones, this is how we, this is a discussion happening at the board level, plus it'll be in the minutes. And they're actually, that group likes having the board minutes included in their packet, in their review, and they do ask questions about the board minutes. But yes, it will filter back to them.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's the context by which that request actually came up.
And this isn't something, just to circle back on, this is for you guys, right? Like, this isn't an action item for us, this is for you and the staff to make the decision, and the pickleball court and everything, and the PNR to work on.
Right.
Okay,
Yep, let's just scope of the minutes here.
perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. All you.
Thank you. Well, the last month for the Park and Rec goings on included the start of the pool season, which is the kind of the big one, which last Monday, April 1st, we opened the pool for our 2024 pool season, which has been great so far. We've actually had a lot of new pool users, a lot of new families, and it's actually been pretty busy for the first couple of weeks of the season, partly due to the sunshine, which we've had and maybe some other factors, but it's been great. One kind of downside has been that our shower, our new water heater has been a little bit on the a little finicky, and we have not had consistent hot water for the shower, but everyone's been taking that in stride, and we just got an update on that today. We had a repair person out to look at that, and indeed that there was some faulty components in the new water heater, and it will be fully replaced under warranty. I think very soon. Sounds like hopefully within like the next week or two or something like that. So it's unfortunate that we started the pool season. It was working great, and then day one it stopped working. So it's kind of people are like, "Is this an April Fool's joke?" You know. But everyone's been very understanding about that, and we're hoping to get that up and running. But everything else in the pool's been great, and it's been great to see the lap swimmers and the rec swimmers, and it's actually been a great start to the season. A lot busier start to the season than I was expecting. So we're encouraged by that. And this week was especially busy because we had our spring break camp running this week, and we brought the kids down to the pool every day because the weather's been great. And so, well, I guess it's only Tuesday. We brought them back to the pool the first 2 days of spring break camp. It feels like a long week, actually. And maybe that's partly because Carolyn's out of town and been helping manning things, but it's been that's been going really well. And I think almost every kid got in the pool this week, or this last 2 days, which has been awesome. But yeah, we're running camp this week for the local kids that are out on break, and that's been great. It's been great to have give our staff a chance, some of them that are moving into bigger positions this summer, a chance to show what they're worth and get a chance to do some of those bigger tasks with the spring break camp. And, 2 days in, it's all going very well, so I'll report next month how the rest of the week went. But so far that's been a really good camp. Summer camp and other summer program registrations continue to come in, and as of right now, I think we're busier than last year at this time in terms of registrations, accounting for some of the price increases we did and everything. So it seems that there's a little bit of a higher demand, or at least an earlier demand with our programming this season. So we're feeling good about that. The one thing I mentioned in my report is there's like this reputation that has been forming over the last handful of years that Marinwood fills up immediately. Like those camps, you got to get on the first day, or there's no chance, and that's true for some of the really high demand age groups, but it's actually not true across the board. And we do have openings, and some of the camps take a lot longer to fill up. So we're trying to combat that narrative that's kind of formed in the community, and trying to do some more targeted marketing. Like, we have 5th grade spots available like these weeks, and so trying to figure out some creative ways to make sure people don't completely write us off because they think they're late to the game, which is something we've been seeing the last few years. So staff are working on that, just trying to make sure we get the word out to people that need our program, that they can actually, still get in if they have kids of the right age.
So
or
can
the right
I
needs.
ask a question?
Yes,
So
please.
what age groups do you find tend to still have vacancies when others are getting filled out?
Right now, we have spots like in the 5th grade, 3rd and 5th grade camps. We have some spots in kindergarten, and we have some spots in 2nd grade. So yeah, I guess like kindergarten. K, 2nd, 3rd, 5th, I would say at the moment. And then there are certain weeks with some of the other camp age groups that, for whatever reason, like week 1 is not totally full, and some of the other weeks are. So, and then the 4th of July week is always low enrollment for obvious reasons. So, but we're gonna be sending out some targeted marketing for that, and putting up some signage just so people kind of like know, oh, maybe there's a spot for my kid. So that's something they're working on. But overall, enrollment is up from last year at this time, and we're feeling really good about that. Our next event will be the Spring Art Show, which is on April 27th, a Saturday, here at the Community Center. And staff's making the preparations for that. And we're expecting that to be another great event. I think we'll have around 50 artists represented there, and that's going to be another awesome event. On the maintenance side of things, ahead of the start of the pool season, staff have been really hard at work down at the pool, continuing to get things ready. We did a lot of work at the hillside picnic area, which is the one closest to where all the work was done on the creek bank. And a lot of that was torn up with equipment and them regrading and building retaining walls and things, and a lot of damage was done to that picnic area, but staff hustled to get that all straightened out and looking good and put all back together. And for the start of the season, everything looked really nice up there. Got some new plants and things refurbished and irrigation reinstalled. There's still a patch of grass that needs to grow out there from where they had the heavy equipment and they turned everything into mud. But we've got that fenced off and the little blades are starting to sprout up. So we're hoping everything is robust and ready to go before the summer starts. We have a new shower coming, hopefully coinciding with the hot water working, but we'll be installing that in, hopefully within the next week we'll have a new shower. Our other shower, I think, might have been from the installation of the pool originally. It may be a little bit more recent than that, but it's old and falling apart and leaking, and so the new one will be a big improvement. Is it the same? It is a very similar design, and maybe some people will not notice the difference, but it will work a lot better and it will not be leaking. So we're, which I know Eric will be happy about the water bill on that one. And then other things going on with the Parks Department. We're starting testing a little bit irrigation, which has been off all winter. We've had such a good rainy season, we haven't needed to water anything for a few months. But everything's being tested and adjusted, repaired before we turn everything on for the rest of the spring. And then we'll be doing some turf treatment, seeding, fertilizing, aerating, not in that order, of all the turf for the spring. Everything's looking great. We're going into the spring season with a really healthy park, healthy lawn because of our efforts, I think, in the fall and last year. So I'm feeling really good about the new routine, and we're feeling that everything's in the best shape possible going into the summer. So that's all I wanted to really highlight. Please let me know if anyone has any questions or would like to bring anything else up. Thank you.
Can I add something to Luke's thing? This is what Tiffany and I were just trying to remember. So apologies. We did make a deposit last week that was primarily Summer Edge of about $1.24 million into our account. That came, again, well over $1 million of that just from that. And when Luke was saying our enrollment is up higher at this point in time than it was last year at this point in time, that reminded me that we just made a healthy deposit into our general fund account. So, which wasn't reflected in here because it was in April. So.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's the one. That's always the biggest check we get.
That was all Measure A funds, right?
Yeah. So we can do all these projects. Yeah.
Sweet.
No, that was probably a little over $1 million of that. At least was just summer camp. Everything else. Then you still have it mixed with a little bit with other classes, preschool, aftercare, things like that. Because the way ActiveNet works, I don't know exactly how often, but it's no more than every 2 weeks, and it might even be more like, is it every 2 weeks? Yeah, they process whatever things we've done every 2 weeks and cut us a check.
Alright. Any questions? Any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Back to the beginning. Okay. Board members' items of interest. You already have the notes to add the meetings, the meeting times or whatever for next month. Any other items of interest to add?
I just want to make a mention that Les Mize passed away this week,
Oh, yes.
and he's been a stalwart in the community, leader of the Lions Club.
Les has been the leader of a lot of things. It was certainly sad. Unfortunately, it wasn't entirely unexpected. He's been dealing with some health issues for a little while. They're going to have the service for him on May 18th.
Correct.
If you knew Les, then they're actually going to have a reception here after the service.
Okay.
The service will be at St. Isabella's and a reception here at the community center. And yeah, this was just last week. We certainly have sent our deepest sympathies to the family who we know on various fronts, not just through here. I mean, his kids and my kids go to school together and everything else,
His grandkids.
Yeah, right. His grandkids, yeah, well, he's got 7 children, so you never know, one of them might still be school age, but, I'm aware. And obviously, I think everybody knows, I mean, Les is probably most well known for having the Mickey Mouse house for all of those years,
Yes. that's
over
amazing.
there on the corner of Blackstone and North Creek, just a fine man. So Bill, I appreciate you bringing that up,
Thank you
and I would say
very much.
whenever you are ready to adjourn, you should do so in his memory and his honor, because I like Les
Yeah.
very, very much. He was a neat person, always helping at our events too. I mean, I just remember Les out there at one of our Harvest Fest or something where he just manned that popcorn machine all night long.
Oh, yeah.
He and everybody wanted popcorn. For some reason, it was the only food option we had for something. I don't remember what the event was, but he just couldn't pop that darn corn fast enough to keep the line moving. And I felt so bad for him because there's nothing any of us could do to help him speed this along. But he was a salt of the earth saint of a man, that's for sure. Just a really nice family. I appreciate you bringing that
And
up.
very, very big in the community.
Yeah.
He made a very good point, so. Any other point of interest you have? All right,
Otherwise, next month will be a final budget.
awesome.
Yeah.
I will adjourn the meeting at 9:18.